We're going to cover the basics of understanding and interpreting a topographic map. As you can see on my desktop here, I have a picture of a topographic map, and the first thing you'll notice is it's got lines just everywhere. This is what we call a topographic map. Once you learn how to read these lines, you can picture a three-dimensional view out of this two-dimensional drawing. Each one of these lines represent an elevation, and we'll look, for example, on this map right here. It's got an elevation of 4,180 feet. Right here we have an elevation of 4,200 feet, which tells us that each one of these lines is 20-foot difference, either increasing or decreasing in elevation. In this particular case, that is uphill and that is downhill. The next thing we want to look at is the spacing between the lines. As you can see in this area, the lines are really close together, and each one of these lines represents 20 feet. So this area right here is very steep in elevation. Whereas down here, you can see how the space is greater between each 20-foot contour line, which indicates that this area is much flatter than this area, which is pretty steep. You'll also notice different area of the maps. A lot of the contour lines are either V or U-shaped, such as this line, which is pointing downhill. And these U-shaped lines, sometimes a V shape, are pointed uphill. Depending on which way the U or V shapes are facing tells us a whole lot about what's going on the topographic survey. In this case, where the U or V shapes are pointing downhill, that is what we call a ridge. Anytime that the U's or V's are pointing uphill, that indicates that it's a valley or a holler. Using this knowledge of contours, many times you can find creeks and stuff like that just by knowing. Let's move over here. Let's go up the hill a little bit. And look right here. Once again, you'll see we have a V shape, more V than U, right here. And we can look at the contour elevations. That's a 4540. This is a 4420, so we know this is going uphill. And when it comes together with a sharp V like this, there's a good chance that there's a creek or stream running right down that V. And I'm going to turn a different layer on and just see if that holds true for this. And yes, when you turn that layer on, you will notice that there is a creek there, actually called Chestnut Ridge Creek. And you can see how it follows right through the points of the V. thing you will notice on the topographic maps is you'll see these round areas. And by looking at the elevations, we know this is up, and on this side this is up. These areas right here are what we call knobs, or the summits. They are the high part on the mountains. And then you'll notice between them the elevations drop a little bit, and that is what we call a gap or a saddle. And that is the basics to reading a topographic map. So let's look at a couple more things. We know this is a knob or a summit. Just to go back over what we was talking about, you have this U-shape area, and we know the elevation's going down. So we can tell that that is a ridge. Here we have a U-shape pointing upwards. And from that, we can tell that there's a valley there. And knowing these basic rules of how to read a topographic map, you should be able to take a two-dimensional drawing and see it in a three-dimensional perspective.